Hey, what's going on? It is your boy Dalton from the Petrolist, and thanks for tuning in. This camera is slightly crooked. Or am I? Is it me? Am I slightly crooked? Anyway, great segue into the video. Speaking of slightly crooked, today I was actually going to talk about, I'm going to say, the most irresponsible, influential people in the F1 space for this week. Now, when I say irresponsible, this doesn't mean that I'm canceling people and saying, oh, I'm no longer a fan, or I should never listen to them again, or, that kind of stuff. It's just people saying silly things, and I'm just going to call them out. Let's get started. All right, so the first one is Jeremy Clarkson. I'm a huge Jeremy Clarkson fan, by the way, just for the record. And just because he said this doesn't mean that all of his automotive credibility has gone out the door. It just means that sometimes people say silly things. Let's start. Let's just start. Okay. So Clarkson said that Verstappen may be the greatest driver we have ever seen. That is a really strong statement, and you would think that someone who's been around motorsports and the automotive industry for as long as he has would be a little more careful with his words. And it's not necessarily careful in terms of censorship, just careful in terms of being realistic, because you don't want to lose all of your credibility. So, and this isn't even necessarily a defense of Lewis Hamilton. This is what I mean. So, in order for Max Verstappen to be the greatest driver of all time, or the greatest driver we've ever seen, he'd have to be better than Ayrton Senna, better than Jim Clark, Michael Schumacher, Sebastian Vettel, James Hunt, Fernando Alonso, Jackie Stewart, Walter Roll, Colin McRae, and of course the 7.5-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. So that just gives a little bit of perspective of why I think that is a very irresponsible statement. You could say that he's the greatest driver of his generation. You could try to say the greatest driver of the last 20 years, but then you get into a very real argument of him versus Lewis Hamilton, and the stats really kind of get in the way of that. And quite frankly, the stats for Sebastian Vettel really get in the way of that. Now, I think what happens a lot is folks get into the politics of their favorite athletes and whatnot, and they kind of use that as a detraction from the athlete's performance on the field of play. Two completely separate things. I don't agree with everything that Hamilton is up to. I don't agree with everything that Verstappen is up to. I don't agree with everything that anybody is up to, because we're human beings and we all have our own different thoughts and agendas and opinions and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to pure statistics, it is very, very difficult to say, at least at this point, also given the T-break thing and the Abu Dhabi 2021 thing. It's really, really difficult to argue that Max Verstappen is quantifiably better than a Fernando Alonso, or even a Sebastian Vettel, or even a Michael Schumacher, if we're even going to say best driver of the last 3 decades. Really hard to say that. So for me, this was a very irresponsible statement by Jeremy Clarkson. The next one is Toto Wolff. Toto Wolff said in his book Inside Mercedes Formula One, he said, "There's a reason why we only signed a 1+1 year contract," Wolff adds, referring to the extension deal Hamilton had signed midway through the 2023 season. Before he decided to activate an early release clause to move to Ferrari. We're in a sport where cognitive sharpness is extremely important, and I believe everyone has a shelf life. So I need to look at the next generation. It's the same in football. Weird statement. Weird statement. Football is not in any way like motorsport. That is just it's a very strange comparison to make. Yeah. And of anyone who knows that there are differences, it would be, it should be Toto Wolff. I mean, if that was the case, there would be no way that Fernando Alonso would still be able to drive at the level that he's driving. Now, what typically happens as drivers get older, it's less so the cognitive function, but it's maybe being risk averse. You could argue, if a driver gets married, has kids, or even just older age, you're like, by the time you're in your 40s, you're no longer mentally 7 feet tall and bulletproof, and the realization of your own mortality starts to come into your head, and maybe for that reason you lift a little bit sooner, or you don't take a risk that the 23-year-old version of you maybe would have taken. Now that, if he was saying that, then yeah, maybe. And maybe he was saying that, but he couldn't say risk averse because it would be a negative thing for the image of Formula One, to remind people that Formula One is a dangerous sport, as is all motorsport. So maybe he had to say cognitive decline, but I honestly, I would have omitted that entire statement. It wasn't needed, and I think it only serves to reduce credibility for Toto Wolff, and also, if it was cognitive limitations that were setting in with Lewis Hamilton, then you wouldn't have to spend so much time sabotaging Hamilton's car, or let's just switch out a power unit and not explain why, or let's pit when he's got more on the tires, or just like all manner of things. Now, maybe Mercedes didn't like all of Hamilton's politics. Maybe they thought he wanted too much money, and maybe they thought that it was simply time to invest in newer, younger drivers. I mean, it's happening a lot. But I think even then, the proper way is to let them race. And if you really believe that there's a cognitive decline, then that will play itself out on the racetrack, and you wouldn't have to worry about trying to sabotage Hamilton's car. So for that reason, I think that Toto Wolff's statement is very disingenuous. There are other things that you could be concerned about, but he chose to say that. Right? Okay. And then the other one I'm going to say has got to be Ben Sulayem. He's irresponsible because he's previously complained about his press conference coverage, saying that the media is trying to, well, you can look it up, because you can look it up. The media is trying to unalive me. Let's say it that way. And he says, if you look at the British media and what they did to me for something's sake, they convicted me. Can you cry a little harder? Can you cry a little harder before you get into your private jet that you somehow expensed to the FIA for no reason? And the guy simply, I think, wants to be on camera too much. He wants to be the center of attention. I'm sorry, that's not your role. I think he was like a 12-time rally champion in the Middle East. So he had an illustrious career. Great. Now it's time for other folks to have a career. And you just be the president of the FIA and do your job and stay out of the cameras and stop saying weird stuff. So those are the three. And in closing, I will also say that Formula One needs more teams on the grid because drivers are lasting longer. See Hamilton, see Fernando Alonso, and there are tons and tons of incredibly talented Formula drivers that are up and coming. So you just have a problem. The sport has changed, aging has changed, nutrition has changed, physical fitness has changed, and because of that, you have drivers that are simply more durable than they used to be. Also, the cars, are safer. Crashes aren't taking nearly the physical cost on drivers that it used to. So again, it's another reason why drivers are going to last a lot longer than they have previously. Okay, that was the Monday video. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a race coming up finally. I am looking forward to it. Pew pew. Oh, and did I tell you that the Racing Lumina died? Yeah, in our last race in Houston, the engine was starved for oil because what looked to be a oil temp sensor just decided to fail and evacuated motor oil during hot laps, and also evacuated the life out of the engine block. So that's the update. I will let you know when we figure out what car we're going to do next. I hope it's front engine, rear drive, manual transmission. Could be a BMW, could be a Mustang. I don't care as long as it is something entertaining to drive. All right, well, that's enough of that. I will see you next Monday. Thanks for watching. I'm out. Oh yeah, this has been the Petrol List. I have been Dalton, and you have been great. Now I'm out.